Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters. I'm your host Mitch, glad to have you here. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about Commander on a budget. Today we have an episode of Commander's 2 Cents. On episodes like these, I give you my own personal take on topics about the format in general and current news. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. And while you're at it, subscribe and review our podcast as well. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Today we've got a part 2 of an episode where we talked about creatures that should be legendary. I talked about how certain cycles of creatures should be legendary for a multitude of reasons. It may have been a mistake admitted by someone from Wizards. It could also be something lore-based as to why the creature should be legendary. Or it might even just be a legendary feel that you get from a creature. Some creatures just feel legendary and seem like you should be able to build a deck around them. Anyways, if you haven't seen that episode yet, you should check it out. I tackled the Nephilim cycle from Guild Pack, the Fate Reforged cycle, a Shards of Alara cycle, and the Demigod cycle from Shadowmoor and Eventide. I'm going to make the same disclaimer on this episode as I did on the last one. These are just my opinions and not everyone's going to agree with them, and that's okay. I'm just going to try to provide my reasoning as best as I can as to why I think that these specific creatures should be legendary. I'll try to provide this reasoning without poking too much fun at Wizards, but there might be some jabs here and there. If I misspeak because I'm misinformed on something, I apologize in advance. Much like Wizards, I make plenty of mistakes. There's jab number 1. Alright, but let's get started. The last creature cycle that I brought up in part 1 was from Shadowmoor and Eventide. And the first cycle for this episode is going to be from there as well. This is what's known as the Leech Cycle from Shadowmoor and Eventide. There are 10 leeches in total, each for one of the 2 color combinations. There are different converted mana costs among them, but each share a similarity with their mana cost. In each of their mana costs, they have 3 hybrid symbols, and each of them is going to give +1/+1 to the other creatures you control of their colors. Now, I'm not sure if there's any lore to back up these creatures needing to be legendary or not. Again, I mentioned this before, but I'm definitely not an expert on lore. That being said, this cycle of creatures just feel legendary. Their hybrid mana costs, their anthems, and their unique effects just really set them apart from other creatures. And by other creatures, I really mean those run-of-the-mill, non-legendary creatures. As I mentioned before, some creatures just feel legendary, and the Leech Cycle definitely does to me. These creatures would be a lot of fun to build around as commanders, so let's take a look at one with Murkfiend Liege. It's a 4/4 horror that costs 2 Simic. It says other green creatures you control get +1/+1, other blue creatures you control get +1/+1, and untap all green and or blue creatures you control during each other player's untap step. So essentially this is a Seedborn Muse in your command zone, but only for your green and or blue creatures. And on top of doing that, it's a very good anthem as well. Most likely, many of your creatures are going to get +1/+1, but some might even get +2/+2. But the part that I think you should be focusing on is that untap effect. Obviously, untapping creatures on your opponent's turns can be a very powerful thing. At a minimum, it's giving your creatures a form of pseudo-vigilance. But you can definitely abuse this with creatures that tap for some powerful effects. Some cards to consider for a deck built around Murkfiend Liege are Karametra's Acolyte, Arcanus Omnipotent, and Kiyora's Follower. Karametra's Acolyte has tap, add an amount of green to your mana pool equal to your devotion to green. So she can tap for a ton of mana, and thanks to Murkfiend Liege, can tap for a ton of mana each turn. So having a mana sink for all this mana can be huge. And then Arcanus Omnipotent has tap, draw 3 cards. That's already a fantastic ability, but with Murkfiend Liege in play, that quadruples its effect. That means that each time around the table, we'll be drawing 12 cards thanks to this. And then a utility card like Kiyora's Follower can come in huge as well. By tapping it, we can untap another target permanent. So again, if we have a creature that can tap for a lot of value like Arcanus, we can double up its effect. With Murkfiend Liege, Arcanus, and Kiyora's Follower in play, we can draw 24 cards in one turn cycle. There are a ton of other powerful creatures out there with tap abilities, and Murkfiend Liege can help you abuse all of them. And again, Murkfiend Liege is just one of those 10 lieges. And there are definitely a few other lieges that I would love to build around as well. Again, they just feel legendary and would be some fun 2-color commanders to build around. Alright, so this next block of creatures is going to be a lot to take in, so hold on to your seats. And that's going to be the flip legendaries from the Kamigawa block. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about Kytheon. You know, Kytheon. Very famous Magic character. Everyone who plays Magic has to know Kytheon by name. There's no way that they can't. After all, it is a legendary creature. In Kytheon, Hero of Akros has, at the end of combat, if Kytheon, Hero of Akros, and at least 2 other creatures attack this combat, exile Kytheon, then return him to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. And Kytheon transforms into Gideon. Okay, so I was being a bit facetious. Not everyone knows that Gideon's real name is actually Kytheon. Regardless, many Magic players might not know that, but they probably know who Gideon is. The reason that I bring up this Flipwalker is because it's similar to the Kamigawa block. There are some cards that are very similar to this Kytheon Gideon design. For example, Runetail is a creature that flips once a condition is met. When you have 30 or more life, you flip Runetail Kitsune Ascendant and it becomes Runetail's Essence, which is a legendary enchantment. So that makes sense. If something starts off as legendary, it stays legendary. If the final form of something is legendary, the previous form had to be legendary as well. After all, everyone comes from somewhere. Gideon had to be Kytheon to become Gideon. So although Kytheon's not known to as many players as Gideon is most likely, it's still a legendary creature. It's essentially just a young Gideon, which is still that character. So what's the point of me saying this and going through this entire exercise where all I've talked about are 2 legendary creatures? The point is that there's inconsistencies with these flip legendaries in the Kamigawa block. When I say inconsistent, I mean that these creatures start off as a non-legendary creature, and once they flip, they become a legendary creature. There are 15 of these inconsistent creatures in total, so get ready for a mouthful. And I'm only going to be saying the first half of their name, not the flip half when they're legendary. So we have Faithful Squire, Bushy Tenderfoot, Kitsune Mystic, Kalojushi, Student of Elements, Jushi Apprentice, Hired Muscle, Nezumi Grave Robber, Nezumi Shortfang, Cunning Bandit, Initiate of Blood, Aki Lava Runner, Budoka Pupil, Orochi Eggwalker, and Paducah Gardener. So obviously it's a lot to take in, but the point is this. In my opinion, each and every single one of these creatures should be a legendary creature and should be able to be a commander. If Budoka Gardener becomes Dokai Weaver of Life, that means that Dokai Weaver of Life was Budoka Gardener at one point. Either when he was younger or less experienced, whatever it is, Budoka Gardener becomes Dokai, which means that Dokai is Budoka Gardener. In the same way that Kytheon is legendary because he becomes Gideon, Budoka Gardener should be legendary because he becomes Dokai. It strikes me as pretty odd that Wizards wouldn't have that as a consistent thing. And not all these creatures are going to be extremely powerful as commanders, but that doesn't really matter either. To me, it just logically makes sense that they should all be legendary anyways. So let's take a look at one of them that I think would be pretty interesting to build around with Kitsune Mystic. It's a 2/3 Fox Wizard for 3 and a white, and it says at the end of the turn, if Kitsune Mystic is enchanted by 2 or more enchantments, flip it. It flips into Autumntail Kitsune Sage, which is a 4/5 Fox Wizard. By paying 1, you can move target enchantment enchanting a creature to another creature. So again, at some point in Autumntail's life, it was Kitsune Mystic. Anyways, this seems like a very easy creature to flip, and it could be a lot of fun with that ability. Being able to move auras around for just 1 mana each is a pretty good deal. So I'd be running some auras like Pacifism, Shielded by Faith, and Ethereal Armor. You can keep shuffling around Pacifism type cards to make sure that you're not being attacked by big threats. And then Shielded by Faith can be a fantastic way to protect the creatures that you want to. You can even do combat tricks with things like Ethereal Armor to pump your creatures out of nowhere. Again, not all these flip creatures would make exciting commanders, but a lot of them would. And if half the card is legendary, shouldn't the other half be? Anyways, my apologies, I've talked about this one for far too long, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. So let's move on to a more lighthearted one with Chromanticore. Chromanticore is a 4/4 enchantment creature that is a, you guessed it, Manticore that costs Wooburg. It has Bestow for 2 in Wooburg, and it has Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink, and it has Enchanted Creature gets +4/+4 and has Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink. Essentially, before Wizards started printing a plethora of 5-color commanders, this one was in consideration for many people. Although it's not legendary, and I highly doubt it shows up in any kind of lore, it's a pretty sweet creature. It's very unique, and with its mana cost and the number of keywords it definitely has that legendary vibe. Anyways, if Chromanticore was a legendary creature, I'd build around it with things like Fleecebane Lion, Eidolon of Lost Battles, and Audric Lunarch Marshal. Fleecebane Lion has Monstrosity 1 for 3 green white. And as long as Fleecebane Lion is monstrous, it has Hexproof and Indestructible. So basically, this is the perfect target for Chromanticore to bestow. An 8/8 Flying, First Strike, Vigilant, Trample, Lifelink, Hexproof, Indestructible creature is a pretty huge threat. Some other pump effects could be included as well, like Eidolon of Countless Battles. It has Bestow for 2 white, and Eidolon of Countless Battles and Enchanted Creature each get +1/+1 for each creature you control, and +1/+1 for each aura you control. And then Audric Lunarch Marshal will be an absolute bomb in this deck. It essentially gives all your creatures every single keyword that Chromanticore has. Again, there's probably no logical reason or lore to back this up, but Chromanticore just feels like a very legendary creature. A similar argument I think can be made for Taminoa. Taminoa is a 2/4 spirit that costs red, green, white. It has whenever a non-creature source you control deals damage, you gain that much life. I mean, the name of this one just sounds like a legendary creature. Personally, I don't know too many Taminoas running around. Now, the flavor text could go one way or the other if the Taminoa is one or multiple beings. Regardless, its effect definitely seems like a legendary creature effect, and one that people have been wanting for a long time. Firesong and Sunspeaker are similar to this, but much weaker in my opinion. First up with this one, you've got access to green, so you've got some legitimate card draw. No offense, Boros. Also, unlike Firesong and Sunspeaker, this counts all non-creature sources. So on top of instants and sorceries, you get every other non-creature spell, including planeswalkers, enchantments, and artifacts. This makes the deck a lot more powerful and gives you many more possibilities. If Taminoa was a legendary creature, some cards are considered to be Mana Barbs, Pyrohemia, and Hurricane. Just by sitting on the field, Mana Barbs is going to deal out a ton of damage and gain you a lot of life throughout the game. And Pyrohemia is going to gain you even more life since it hits creatures and players. And a card like Hurricane can be a fantastic finisher and a brutal card in this deck. Again, Taminoa just feels like a legendary creature and it would be a lot of fun to build around. But to finish off the discussion today, let's go over a very different kind of creature. And that's going to be Uncle Istvan. In my opinion, the reason this one should be legendary is how many Uncle Istevans can there possibly be? There truly can't be more than one. I mean, this guy seems pretty unique. And that's putting it in a very polite, nice way. Anyways, Uncle Istvan is a 1/3 human that costs 1 black. He has prevent all damage that will be dealt to Uncle Istvan by creatures. So this is not a powerful commander by any means. But again, there's probably only one Uncle Istvan out there, so it probably should be legendary. Anyways, if I wanted to build around good old Uncle Istvan, I'd probably use things like Nightmare Lash, Crypt Rats, and Thrashing Wumpus. This would most likely be a Voltron build, so something like Nightmare Lash could come in huge. And then things like Crypt Rats and Thrashing Wumpus could wipe out the board while not hurting their Uncle Istvan. Again, not a powerful deck, but a pretty funny one. Regardless, I think I brought up some pretty good reasons today on why certain creatures should be legendary. And while I think Wizards will never change them, I hope they will. But with that, our show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. In the comments below, let me know if you think these creatures should be legendary or not, and why. And make sure you're following us on social media for more updates and sneak peeks on future episodes. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons who help make this show possible. I truly couldn't do any of this without your support. If you want to support this channel directly, consider becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, including being able to vote on future commanders for deck techs. There are even tiers where you get your own personalized deck tech dedicated to you. You can check out all the Patreon tiers and rewards at patreon.com/commandersquarters. If you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about budget commander. So while you're at it, go ahead and check out some of our other types of episodes. And with that, I'm out of here. Thanks again and have a good one.